All right, good morning, everyone. My name is James Borkman, the Director of Procurement for the Public Building Commission of Chicago. Today, we're here to discuss contract PS3101, the request for proposals for audit services. This is the non-mandatory pre-submission conference. Today is August 4th, 2025, and the time is 11 a.m. Our agenda for this morning is to provide a welcome and introductions to those of you interested in providing audit services. We'll go over what the audit services at the Public Building Commission of Chicago look like, talk a little bit about the finer points of the procurement itself, go over specifics of the evaluation and submission criteria, provide some time to our compliance department to talk about the goals for this contract and the success we have at the PBC with our compliance operations, and then turn it over to you for some Q&A. So let's start with some welcome and introductions. My name is James Borkman. As I said, I'm with the Public Building Commission of Chicago. Patty?
PBC Procurement, welcome.
Miguel?
Good morning, Miguel Fernandez, PBC Procurement.
Tanya?
Good morning, Tanya Fouché Weekly, PBC Director of Finance.
Deb?
Good morning, Deborah Flanagan, PBC Senior Staff Accountant.
Lisa?
Good morning, this is Lisa, PBC IT and Controls. Thank you.
Patrice?
Good morning, Patrice Doyle, PBC Compliance.
Mary Pat?
Good morning, Mary Pat Witchery, PBC Board Governance.
I think I've got all of our PBC team, so thank you all for joining. For those of you that are potential respondents, if you want to introduce yourselves as I call your name, I'm just going to go down the list as it appears on my screen. Ben.
Hi, my name is Ben Packett. I'm a manager with Clifton Larson Allen.
Good morning, Ben. Adam.
Adam Pulley, principal with Clifton Larson Allen.
Craig.
Craig Harner. I'm a partner with Macias, Genie, and O'Connell.
Good morning. Dan.
Hey, Dan Curran, partner at Crow.
Kevin.
Kevin Rogers, manager with Clifton Larson Allen.
Good morning. Maria.
Maria Prado, managing partner with Prado and Renteria CPAs.
Good morning. Did I leave anyone out?
Hi, Kevin Bissell, director with Cherry Beckert.
Just kidding, Kevin, and I apologize. Welcome. So thank you all for joining. Again, as part of the agenda, we want to go over what the audit services look like at the Public Building Commission of Chicago. You work hand in hand with our Director of Finance, Tanya Fouché Weekly, and her team. And I'm going to briefly highlight the basics of the PBC, and then I want to turn it over to Tanya to give you a little bit more insight into what audit services look like for a municipal corporation that's set up as a commission. As many of you may be familiar with Cook County, City of Chicago, but not some of the specifics of sister agencies, especially those created specifically by state statute. So as many of you know, the PBC was created as an independent government unit by the state legislature utilizing the PBC Act, instituted by the City of Chicago. We have a number of commissioners that are representative of our user agencies. That's the City of Chicago, where the mayor serves as the chairman of our board. Cook County, president of Cook County, Tony Preckwinkle, is a commissioner. City Colleges of Chicago, the Department of CDOT, Chicago Public Libraries, the Forest Preserve District, the Chicago Public Schools, the Chicago Park District, and other municipalities. We do everything from acquire the land, issue bonds, all the way through the completion of any project designed to enhance, improve, or rebuild the public buildings and public-facing amenities for the Chicagoland area. Fun fact, we also have the ability to work anywhere else in the country, one of the few PBCs to occupy that special status. With that, I want to give Tanya an opportunity to talk a little bit about what audit services look like at the PBC. So Tanya, take it away.
Good morning. We thank you for coming to view for our audit RFP. And specifically, as James said, while we are a governmental unit, we're a little more unique in how our audit process may go and how our revenues and expenses are, because we're not like TIP funded or strictly bond funding. A lot of our funding comes from agencies from a cash flow perspective, which makes our accounting very similar to for-profit, even though we are in a governmental, unit. We do follow comply with GASB, and annually we are submitting an ACFRA, the annual comprehensive financial report. So we will be looking for the audit firms to provide that documentation to come in to to go through our process, which our fiscal year end is December 31st. And we have to have our report submitted by June 30th of the following year. And with that, we produced annual financial statements as are required, and every other element that goes within the requirements for GASB reporting and for the ACFRA for our organization. You're on mute, James.
I'll unmute myself. Thank you, Tanya. Sorry about that. So I appreciate the insight, and they're also required to give a report to our audit committee of a board of commissioners, correct?
Correct.
And so you will be required to present to the commission, the audit committee, following the analysis and the June 30th report submission deadline. So I'm briefly going to go through the finer points of the procurement detail. It's not as exciting as Tanya's information, but it's necessary for everyone to understand what we're looking for in the submission requirements, and specifically what Tanya and her team and the evaluation committee are looking for to fully evaluate the audit proposals that you're presenting. So let's kick it off with a little bit of an overview of our procurement timeline. The RFP for this procurement was issued on July 16th. We're right now at the pre-submission conference. We're asking for any questions regarding this RFP to be submitted on August 7th. The submission deadline, as everyone should know by now, is August 12th. And the successful respondent's appointment, after any interviews or extra information that the audit committee the audit evaluation committee may request, will be going to our September PBC board meeting. All of the documents that you need to complete this RFP, as obviously all of you are aware since you're here at this meeting, can be found on the current opportunities page for the Public Building Commission's Audit Services RFP. All the dates, information, any submission of forms, all that information is all available right there. It's a one-stop shop. You can also click, if you're viewing this presentation at a later time, right here at the bottom right, this link will take you directly to that current opportunities page. The due date, again, as I emphasized earlier, is coming up very quickly. It's next Tuesday, August 12th, 2025 at 11 a.m. As Tanya and I have both emphasized, we are a government agency, which means we have a strict deadline. We receive this at 11 o'clock in 1 second. It cannot be considered. So please allow your staff and yourself time for the email to make its way through what is the tunnel of death, as we like to call it, here at the PBC. Sometimes we don't receive an email 6-7 minutes after people have already submitted it. So please allow yourself time to submit your submission early enough to allow for any sort of email lag, any sort of government review of the attachments that you're required to submit with this procurement to reach us here at the PBC. We say submit, early 2 or 3 hours before the official due date. It's up to you how you run your submission. You will be judged for it, especially if it's after 11 o'clock a.m., where we cannot consider your submission. The sole point of contact for this procurement is Miguel Fernandez. He can be reached at miguel.fernandez@cityofchicago.org. The deadline for any questions, for any RFIs, requests for information, is currently Thursday, August 7th, 2025 at noon. No addenda have been issued to date, but should an addenda be issued where we would answer any questions or add or change any information as part of this RFP, that addenda will be issued via a PBC alert, which you can sign up for PBC alerts at pbcchicago.com. And it would also be posted on the current opportunities page under the addenda section. Going to go through some of the submission and evaluation criteria in a little more detail. Our ProServe contracts are specific and require a large amount of information to be submitted to the PBC. We're a little different than many other government agencies. We have specific requirements, not just by our act, but by best practices and years of experience with various styles of professional service agreements. To that end, I want to highlight a few items that are going to be specifically sought. I first want to highlight a best practice that we've instituted here at the PBC and we're very proud of. It's our submission checklist. You may think, oh, well, that seems pretty basic. You'd be amazed at the number of submissions we receive that have paid no attention to various different styles of submission checklists. To accomplish, I think, a better submission from each of our respondents or proposed respondents, we actually make the checklist a requirement. We need to see that you have submitted the documents necessary, tabbed in the order we requested them, to fully evaluate your submission. Remember, an incomplete submission will not be considered. So we have the checklist. We also have a contact information page. Again, that's Miguel Fernandez. He's the only point of contact. The cover letter you submit needs to be signed by an authorized representative, binding your firm to the representation that you have made in the submission. You'll need to submit an organization chart. You're going to need to submit a work plan specific to the PBC. You're going to need to submit references. I'll talk a little bit more about references in a moment. You're going to need to submit your audit services fee proposal. You'll need to submit your M&W past participation, evincing your ability to actually succeed in accomplishing M&W BE goals meaningfully. And we'll talk a little bit about attachments. Again, this checklist is here to help you. It's tabbed. It's a requirement. Please ensure that you submit it with your information. You'll also have to submit various exhibits. We need your legal actions exhibit, your disclosure affidavit, and a disclosure of retained parties if you've retained anything. The evaluation criteria, very straightforward. We don't hide the ball here at the PBC. Your experience and qualifications are going to count for 15% of your score. Your project approach is going to count for 30% of your score. Your past performance, 10%, references 5%. Your audit services fee proposals, 15%. So you can see that price is not the be-all end-all at the PBC. We need quality. Also, the minority and women-owned business participation is going to count for 20% of your score. In your financial capacity, which hopefully if you're submitting to perform audit services shouldn't be too much of a burden for you, will count for 5%. So let's go over a little bit what we're looking for in each of these areas. I want to spend some time highlighting what you need to submit. As part of your experience and qualifications, what your firm and key personnel are actually capable of, we need to see technical competence, events technical competence. We want to see your organization's overview. What does your organization look like? We have a history at the PBC of supporting small, local, minority, and women-owned businesses. We want to see or emphasize that aspect in your organizational chart. We also need to see your licenses and certifications. As we're a government agency, we're stewards of taxpayer dollars. You got to be licensed and qualified to perform the audit work that we require here at the PBC. One way in which you can really set yourself apart, why it's 30% of your score, is your project approach. We're limiting it to 15 pages. We don't want the committee mired in unnecessary detail, but we do want you to have the ability to talk to us about what your firm does that sets it apart from your competitors. So We want to see a work plan that's going to accomplish the specific scope and the services that are required for the PBC. We want you to state a purpose and degree of utilization for the PBC's personnel. You're going to have access to the PBC personnel. You must utilize them. How are you going to utilize them? What extra workload are you going to request that Tanya and her team take on? Where can you set yourself apart to maybe alleviate some of that extra workload? We want to see the approach that you're going to follow in determining samples and the purpose tests of compliance. That sounds pretty standard. We don't want to see some cookie cutter submission that you put in for Cook County or City of Chicago or the state of Illinois or any other across the street agency. We need you to submit an approach based on audit samples that you've done for things that look like the commission. If you don't have something that's that specific, tell us how the Cook County, State of Illinois, City of Chicago submission that you would likely submit in place of something specific to a commission is going to be modified to look like the work that we're requiring you here for this specific RFP. And last, we want to see an approach to resolving audit problems. We know that there are specifics, especially with updated GASB standards, with changes in legislation, not just at the state level, but obviously at the federal level, especially in this day and age. We want to know how any sort of problems that you run into, the approach that you're going to provide fully, fairly, and quickly would resolve any of those problems. For your past performance, we require that you submit a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 5 audit projects that you've performed within the last 3 years within your licensing capacity that were performed locally. Locally means the Chicagoland area. So that's going to establish that you have this verifiable experience and past performance commensurate with the work we're going to need you to perform. We want to see what work relates to our ability to successfully administer, manage, present any aspect of an audit. We need to know that your familiarity with governmental agencies and the standards we operate under are clearly demonstrable. Provide a narrative of the work that you've done, highlighting a recent problem that you encountered in an audit and the way in which you overcame that problem, and that you've now instituted a best practices reflective of the improvement as a result of overcoming that problem, so that you can identify it early on and not encounter it again. And then we'll need basic audit project descriptions, which would include at a minimum, as it clearly says on the screen, the scope of work performed, the location, dollar value, and should the respondent's key personnel should list the respondent's key personnel that would participate in this project if you think it's going to help set yourself apart. For the references, as I said, I'm going to talk a little bit about this. We want you to provide clients that you've worked with in the past that are similar to the PBC. To that end, I am going to emphasize that your references, if you want them to be good references, should be vetted. You'd be amazed at how many references Patty and I call only to have a negative report. While this is only 5% of your score, 9 times out of 10, it is sufficient to knock people out of contention, especially if they get poor reports. Know what you're submitting. Make sure that it's clearly identifiable as someone or a project that is comparable to what you're doing here at the PBC. And our advice to you is to vet them clearly. You'll utilize Exhibit G, which is the form you see on the screen, for your references. And we call everybody. For your fee proposal, as this contract is a 3-year contract with 3 optional extensions, exercisable solely at the option of the PBC, you'll also need to complete the Schedule A, Audit Services Fee Proposal. You'll put in a number for each audit year that is the total amount that the audit will cost. The number cannot be changed. Once we accept your proposal, we can negotiate should we so choose. But once you sign the proposal and it's taken to the board, extra services, things like that will not be considered an increase to the fee that you propose here. It must be all encompassing. The specific requirements are further detailed in Schedule A of the RFP. In a minute, I'm going to ask Patrice to go over specifics regarding the minority and women-owned business participation goals for this contract. But I want to highlight the requirement that you complete Exhibit H. Exhibit H will be done 3 times. We want 3 examples of projects completed over the last 3 years where you have met or exceeded the M&WBE goal of a contract. For us, for this specific project, Patrice will go over this in detail. The goal is a 30% aggregate goal, meaning that you can meet the M&WBE goal by either 30% MBE, 30% WBE, or a combination of both. The financial capacity, I'm not going to read all of this, but you should be able to evince your financial capabilities clearly so that Tanya and her team can fully evaluate your capacity to perform this style of audit services. So once you have all of this information put together, how do you submit it? You submit 1 complete copy of the RFP document, tabbed, page numbered, and labeled just as it was stated in the checklist, in an email submitted to the following emails: pbc-procurement@cityofchicago.org and miguel.fernandez@cityofchicago.org. Your financial information will also be part of that same email, but it will be a separate attachment. Both, insofar as it's able, both submission documents should be single searchable PDFs. We understand that obviously a scanned copy of a license, a wet signature page, a certificate, or a permit will not necessarily be able to be searchable. That's fine. But the majority of the document should be searchable so that our evaluation committee can simply Control F, review specifics of what they're looking for. We do have a file size limitation at the PBC. It's 25 megabytes. Generally, the ProServe contracts don't exceed that. However, if yours does, no problem. We're happy to accept the same email with a hyperlink to WeTransfer, Google Docs, Dropbox, or some other secure file link sharing program. I again had Miguel add this slide because I want to remind you all there is a checklist. We want the documentation submitted as per this checklist. Patrice, you want to spend a little time talking about the goals for this project and the historical significance of compliance at the PBC.
Yes, thank you, James. Welcome, everyone. And as James mentioned earlier, the goals for this specific submission is 30% MBE, WBE aggregate. We only accept certification from the City of Chicago or Cook County. I know other agencies have certifications, but we only accept those certifications from those 2 agencies, City of Chicago and Cook County. They must currently be certified, and they also must be certified in the scope of work that they're performing. So make sure when you're receiving their certification that it matches the performance of work that they will be providing on this submission. All right, if you're going to do a joint venture agreement, meaning MBE and a WBE, or non and an MBE, or non and a WBE, you don't have to submit your contract at the present time of your submission, but you must complete the Schedule B for joint ventures, indicating the percentage of the MBE, WBE, or non, the breakup of your company. You must also indicate the scope of work that the individuals will be performing to identify what percentage MBE or WBE will be met on your submission. And if awarded, then you will have to submit your contract, your joint venture contract agreement. You must submit a Schedule D, which identifies the credit amount for your MBE or WBE, and a Schedule C, which indicates your MBE or WBE. This is the credit amount for your MBE and WBE participation. If you have a MBE or WBE that is an established business, they are still currently certified, but they may be an established business and they only receive a certain percent of credit. The first year of the graduation program, they receive 75%, second year 50%, and third year is 25%. So make sure if they give you a certification letter, I suggest also verifying it with the city of Chicago or Cook County website and make sure that they're not an established business. The letter may be old and I indicate that, and you're submitting a letter and we reply back that the credit is not the correct credit amount. So make sure you also verify that they're not an established business. So if they were an established business at a 1 year of the graduation program and their contract value is 100,000, you would only put 75,000 on the Schedule D because that is the credit amount. And the Schedule D should be completed by the person that's submitting the proposal. The Schedule C should be submitted by the contractor, indicating who they're sub-consulting to, their scope of work. If they are the subcontracting levels for this, if they're subcontracting any sub-consulting work to someone, they would indicate that amount, whether it's a non-MBE or a M or WBE. If it's a M or WBE, they still receive full credit. If it's a non-MBE or WBE and you indicate the sub-consultant indicates that there will be subletting 10%, and their contract value is 100,000, then 100,000 will appear on the Schedule C, and 90,000, the credit amount, will appear on the Schedule D. Please make sure that that subcontracting level is completed when they submit their Schedule C. All right. Thank you, James. Back to you.
Thank you, Patrice. Appreciate it. Again, the sole point of contact for this RFP is Miguel Fernandez, and his email is right there on the screen, miguel.fernandez@cityofchicago.org. With that, we're happy to turn it over for questions. I don't see any questions in the chat. If anyone has any questions, we're happy to answer them at this time.
Hey, James, if I may, I got a quick question.
Yes, Adam.
So I will tell you, when I first read through the RFP, understanding the 30% goal for MBE, WBE, when I first read through it, I got the impression that maybe that 30%, the goal is almost divided up where a portion should be MBE and a portion should be WBE. Do I have that wrong, or is it, should there be two firms essentially, or potentially one that meets the goal of 30%?
You can have one that meets the 30%. You can have one MBE, or you can have one WBE, or you can have a combination of MBEs and WBEs.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. It is, we call that, just in case you read through it again, it's called an aggregate goal, meaning it can be met by either one, both, or a combination.
I lied. I have one more question.
Please.
Regarding the timeline, I know we'll have the opportunity to submit questions, and we will on, what was it, Thursday, I think. Is there an anticipated turnaround time essentially for the answers to those questions?
We don't ever state a turnaround time because it varies depending on how many questions we receive. Since the due date is the 12th, we want to give people as much time as possible. So the sooner you get the questions in, the sooner we would be able to respond to them and issue an addenda if we choose to answer any of those questions.
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Going once, going twice.
I do have a question. This is Maria.
Hi, Maria.
I have would like to know whether any of the requirements of the prime may be applicable to the sub.
Can you be a little more specific? Are you talking about the
Yes.
scope itself?
Yes, I am talking about the scope of services and the qualifications. So for example, the references or any of the specific information that's required of the prime.
Yes, so if you're submitting in your own right, you've got to submit all of the information required. If you're looking
Yes.
to submit as part of another team or as a sub to another general consultant, you're acting as a
Yes.
sub consultant to
Yes.
someone looking to submit in their own right. It'd be very important if you're not going to joint venture to at least provide sufficient information for us to be able to evaluate your participation in the program, vis-a-vis supplementing the information that the primary consultant is providing as part of their submission packet. More specifically, there are specific areas in the submission requirements where you would be able to, as a sub-consultant, provide a specific piece of information. So think about what sets you apart, your quote unquote value add. That would be an
Yes.
area where you'd like to highlight that. I would also recommend that as part of your initial submission letter, maybe you could submit a letter in connection with the cover letter submitted by the binding authority of the primary consultant submitting, something like that. So it's a complex answer to a surprisingly complex question. I think when it's all said and done, the more information we have regarding a sub-consultant, the better the committee is able to evaluate the overall participation of both parties. If we don't have a sufficient amount of information, then we would likely make a decision accordingly.
Thank you.
Good question. Very good question. Anyone else? Okay. With that, I will conclude we'll go back to the front page here for everybody. I'll conclude the presentation at this time. Again, this is the pre-submission conference for the request for proposals for audit services PS3101 for the Public Building Commission of Chicago. I want to thank everyone for your time today. And again, a reminder that the questions deadline is Thursday, August 7th. Thank you again, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.